Neil Price is the radio voice of Mississippi State football and men's basketball. In a previous, I wouldn't call it a previous life, a previous gig, he was the radio voice of Kentucky baseball and women's basketball, so well versed in all that is going across the SEC, and he joins us here on Halftime. Neil, it's always good to talk to you, man. How's it going in Starkville these days?
And I don't know that you're that far off on that description. There are days when I wake up when, yes, that did feel like another life ago, and there are days when it felt like it was yesterday. But you know, as a guy who went through the minors as long as you did, I'm sure you've had plenty of days that feel that way too.
You know, I thought about this because I'm about to go through all my clothing and get rid of some T-shirts. When I left the Travelers, I had 14 years of staff shirts. They gave you like 3 or 4 a year. I'm talking a stack that you could put up to the ceiling. I gave all that stuff away. What did you do with all of your Kentucky gear? Because you can't be wearing that stuff when you're around Mississippi State.
You know, I did something very similar. I just found people that, you know, could use it because same thing. You get 3 or 4 shirts a year. You might get a couple of hats a year. The only thing I didn't give away, and they have since worn out, I kept sweatshirts because, you know, Nike was the apparel distributor up there. And, you know, when I first got there in 2005, they made really thick, nice sweatshirts. And, you know, when you're talking about the winter in Kentucky, those things come in handy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I just thought, man, yeah, I know it's not the right logo, but if you got a cold night at home, you know, it might be worth having. And, of course, there aren't many cold nights here, even in the winter, so those have since been phased out, too. But yeah, same thing. Just give them away. They're far too nice to just throw away. And I think I know a little bit about how coaches are now. It's such a transient business that I'm sure there's a lot of donating to Goodwill or any other agency that might be, you know, trying to help folks out, and folks are walking around with some really nice merchandise on that's, you know, from whatever athletic apparel manufacturer, whatever team's logo on it, because somebody's moved on or their allegiances have changed.
Yeah. I kept the sweatpants that UALR gave me when I did their women's basketball games, and I will take that on the road, just the sweatpants, you know, to wear. I've worn them at breakfast, and maybe one person has noticed the Trojans logo on the bottom of the black sweatpants. I'm like, well, you know, they actually give me more than the Hogs do sometimes, so it was too comfortable to give away. And it was Nike.
In fairness, they are family. I mean, the UA is the same, okay? You know, so, I mean, in fairness, they are family, so they ought to let you slide on that a little bit.
I appreciate you helping me out with that. All right, so, I mean, you go from the highs of Mississippi State enjoying their first ever national championship in any sport from the College World Series into a football season in which, at least, you know, regionally, there don't seem to be a lot of high expectations for Mike Leach's team in the second year there. The media picks them behind Arkansas 7th in the SEC West. And, you know, when I look at last year, defensively, the Zach Arnett defense was pretty decent, actually. The air raid was the inconsistent aspect of this team. Is there a thought that in the second year, with a little time to sort of just sit in that offense and let it and learn it a lot better, that this year the offense could be better, certainly with a new quarterback, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you look at Mike Leach's track record, too, every stop he's had, year 2, there's been a significant jump in what's happened offensively. And I don't have any reason to believe that they won't take strides in a positive direction on offense this year. You know, Will Rogers started, 4 games last year, played in the last 6. So, he got some trial by fire in that way. And, he's the guy who's the front runner for the job right now, although I think Jack Abraham will push him once Jack gets back into practice, because he's got experience and older guy who can pick up on concepts pretty quickly. But all those skill guys that played in the second half of the season are all back, so they've got experience running the air raid in the game, but they've had a spring, and they're also going through fall camp right now, getting some pretty valuable reps in doing that. Offensive line was where the biggest issue was, I think, because you had a lot of guys who were playing on that offensive line that were brought in to be run blockers, and it's just not an offense that lends itself to running the football a ton. So they had to kind of learn a whole new blocking scheme, and hopefully they will be better. And if they are, I think that the offense will be better. Now that said, playing in the toughest division in college football. So, what's improvement look like? I can't tell you with regard to wins and losses because of who the opposition is every year. And I'm sure Arkansas would say the same thing. They play the toughest schedule in the country. So are we going to be better? Well, yeah, we think we are. Is it going to mean that we're going to win 8 games, 9 games, whatever? Who knows? It just depends on what happens on Saturday because the league is what it is. But, no, I'd be surprised if they don't take a step forward offensively. I really would.
Yeah, Mike Leach is just too good of an offensive-minded type of coach for them not to continually make progress year in and year out, especially as he starts to get in his type of guys, his type of players that fit that air raid type of offense. And obviously, when you talk about Mike Leach, he's one of those he's one of the top 5 characters all of college football. Now that you've gotten to, I don't know how much in-person time you've gotten to be with him and spend time with him and get to know him due to the pandemic and everything, but what's one thing about working with him that has surprised you when you found out he was going to get the job?
I think the thing that has surprised me, and this is going to sound crazy when I say it, is just how much of a regular guy he is. I was doing junior college basketball games in really what was another life ago, 20 years ago. And that was the last point in my life where I felt like, you could walk into a coach's office or you could have a conversation with a coach, and it was just like talking to a regular person because a lot of those folks were, and in some cases they even had second jobs so they could coach. When you walk out on the practice field and you talk to Coach Leach, it's just like talking to a regular guy. Now, he's highly intelligent, don't get me wrong now, and he knows football. But, he can just sit there and have a conversation about anything and be content to do it and not seem like that it's wasting his time or that he's got somewhere else he needs to be or would rather be. That part, to me, has been really cool. And I'll give you a perfect example of it. My wife and I were going to Yellowstone for vacation back in May, and it was about 2 weeks after the spring game. And I went out to spring practice, and I was going to get Coach and do his interview. And I said, hey, when we're done with this, I said, I don't want to keep you long. I said, but I know you're from that part of the world. I said, can I just pick your brain about what I need to see in case I never get back? What are the things I absolutely need to do? Turned into an hour and 15 minutes on, do this. Go, if you're in Wyoming, it's 4 hours, but drive these 4 hours and see this thing because if you don't go back, you'll really enjoy it. And then to kind of cater to those who like the guy who is a little bit eccentric, he looks at me and goes, you're going to want to stay away from the bear, okay? Because the bear's been asleep for 5 months. He's going to stumble out of the cave. He doesn't know what you are, but you're kind of big and you might taste good. So he might give you a try. So stay away from the bear.
That sounds like some really good advice from Coach Leach. Neil, I can't say the name of the school because I'll get fined. But y'all have a matchup in West Tennessee, Week 3, September 18th. It's going to be pretty two high-powered offenses. And from what I've been thinking and reading is that it's going to be, maybe first one to 50. Do you see it the same way? And how do you think Mississippi State matches up in that non-conference game with a team I'm not allowed to talk about, apparently?
I think it could be that way. Absolutely. And I think, too, that's a significant game early in the year for State because, 3 of the first 4 are at home. That's the one game on the road. And, one of those home games is also LSU at the end of September, first conference game. And they're going to be, I think, much better than they were a year ago. So if State can find a way to win 3 out of those 4, I think that Memphis game, and I know you don't say it, but I'll say it. I think that
I want to say it. I just get fined. That's where I'm from. I'm an alum.
Yeah, I think that factors in heavily to how that month plays out. So, is it a shootout? Maybe. I think State's defense is going to be better. They've got, even though they've lost some key people, I think that they've got a lot of young guys that are good pieces and they'll get a guy like Fred Peters back at the back end of that defense who can give them some experience to go along with a couple really highly touted corners. So I think they're going to be fine defensively, and maybe that's the difference for them. Maybe they get enough stops that's what wins the game for them. But no, it'll be entertaining, no question about that.
Neil, what do you like about living in Starkville? I feel like Starkville is one of those cities that gets a bad rap, and it gets a bad rap from a lot of people who've never visited it before. They just figure it's some little town in Mississippi, which it is, but it's got a lot of charm to it. I love the facilities on campus. You've been there long enough.
Cotton District's pretty fun.
To have a sense of why Starkville is a nice place to live and a good place to go to school. Heck, the city's got a sense of humor. They call themselves Stark Vegas. What do you like about living in Starkville?
What drew me to it is that it reminded me a lot of where I grew up. Now where I grew up even is a bigger town, but the people are very similar. I like the fact that you can walk down the sidewalk on Main Street and you will see someone that you know. There's a real comfort that comes with that. Is it Nashville? No, it's not, and that's okay. You can do things in Nashville you can't do in Starkville, but you can have a quality of life in Starkville you can't have in Nashville. It works both ways. I agree with you that I think unfairly the town does get a bad rap from a lot of people that either A, have never been here, or B, have only been here for, 18 hours at a time, maybe. But it is what it is. Those people don't have to come back, or they don't have to come at all. That's kind of how it is. I personally, too, I'm a fan of the smaller towns in the league, period. I like Fayetteville a lot. Now, I know Fayetteville's in an area up there where you turn into more of a metro area because of all the towns that are right there, within arm's reach. But I really like the charm of Fayetteville. I do. I like it. I like
Auburn's another town like that. I
like Auburn a lot. I like Athens a lot. I think the small towns are really cool because you get to experience that college town environment. Don't get me wrong. I grew up in East Tennessee. I love Knoxville. I love it. I love Lexington for 12 years. Those are two, I guess I'd call them, they're larger markets in this league, but mid-sized markets, and it's, so there's nothing wrong with Starkville. I like it because it's comfortable for me. It reminds me of where I grew up in East Tennessee a lot. And I think that's the draw of it, is when you come here, you feel like you're a part of something and you're not just a small piece of some great big pond that you might be swimming around in if you go to one of the bigger cities to play.
Last thing, and I'll let you go here. You know college baseball well in your time. You don't do the Mississippi State baseball broadcasts. The championship is, it's something that hits hard up here in Northwest Arkansas, knowing that that the Razorbacks went 3-0 against Mississippi State, and obviously were number one all that time. But it does tell you that it's all about the team that's hottest at the end of the season. What have these last couple of months been like in Starkville? I'm sure that there's still a glow from the championship in Omaha.
Oh yeah, they're still partying. Oh yeah, they've not given up on that yet, and I would imagine that will continue right into football season. A lot of people are already, getting on board the way too early. Here's what we think next year, 22 is going to be like. It's funny. I ran into Chris Lamonis this morning at the barbershop. We were in there at the same time, and I hadn't seen him since the season ended. And I just asked him. I said, "Have you come down off your cloud yet?" And he said, "No." He said, "It's still sinking in." He said, "But I've had a daughter to move back into college, and I've done that." He said, "We finally got away for a vacation." And he said, "I've kind of been away from it for at least a better part of the last month." And he said that was good in some ways to kind of step away and get out of the hoopla and all, because that's all it's been here. I mean, it's just they've got a deal with Fanatics to do all the licensing apparel for them and all that. And state people were so excited when they went, they broke the website. They broke it. I mean, trying to buy stuff. And I think they said they sold more Mississippi State merchandise than anything they've ever sold in the days following winning the College World Series, because people just were so hungry for that to happen here. And the cool thing that came out of it, I don't have anything to do with the broadcast, but in my day job here, working in television, I put together a show that led into the celebration they had here once the team got back, and we did, 45 minutes of live TV going into this thing, and I just got a hold of former players. Jeff Brantley was really good to come on and spend some time, and some other folks who've been around the program for a long time, and to hear the joy they had, because they had either been close in their playing careers or they just wanted it to happen like any other alum, was really something. The number of 80 and 90-year-old State fans that have said they didn't think they'd see anything like that in their lifetime. They just given up hope it would ever happen. Some that are even in their 60s, just said, I just resolved myself that it was never going to happen. I mean, these people are crying. It's really been something to see those stories and those reactions and read about those. Not so much, what the players and the coaches did is great. It was great to watch, but the other stories that have come out of it from people who've just been long suffering, waiting on that to happen, have been really, really impressive.
Well, we'll see what happens in this next season. The Hogs and Bulldogs will always have an interesting series. Neil, we're up against it. We'll leave it there.
And wait until we add Texas and Oklahoma and see how
it'll be even better.
No kidding. Another conversation for another time. Neil, appreciate your time, man. Have a great week.
See you guys.
All right, Neil Price, voice of Mississippi State football and men's basketball here on Halftime. We're brought to you by Joe's Grill and Cantina. Lunchtime Tuesday. And you know what that means, Matty T?
I sure do.
It's Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday.
Tacos, $1 all day. Beef or chicken crispy tacos, just $1. Pork carnitas tacos are $2.25. Brisket tacos, $3.25. Same with the pork belly tacos. They'll have live music tonight on the patio. Saturdays as well. That's Joe's Grill and Cantina in Fort Smith, right across from Harps. Halftime to wrap up the first hour after this.